Day number one of the New York Giants rookie minicamp is in the books. Some takeaways and some thoughts on what I saw and what I heard. That's coming your way next on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. My name is Patricia Traina. Happy Friday to everybody. We're coming to you a little later than I had hoped to, but just so much to get through. The New York Giants, of course, kicking off a 2-day rookie minicamp. I was there, had some things that I had to sort through with audio clips, transcripts, writing, and all that stuff. But here I am, folks. I'm here to talk about my observations, my takeaways from the minicamp, which, by the way, also featured a guest stop by Dexter Lawrence. Sexy Dexy is back. That's right. He signed his contract today and he spoke to the media. So we'll talk a little bit about that. I'll give you some of my takeaways, some of my observations, and I'll send you into the weekend, hopefully on a high note, because it was a pretty good day, I thought, overall, considering what the Giants were trying to do. So thank you so much for joining me and for being patient with me, above all, with getting this podcast together. And a special shout out to my everydayers. I love you guys. I appreciate you for tuning in every single day. Those of you who make us your first listen or watch every day, I appreciate that. If you're an everydayer, check in with me. I'll give you a shout out, whether you put a comment in the YouTube section, the comments underneath this video, or if you're listening on our audio platforms, drop me an email and I will be happy to give you a shout out as we go along. So again, thank you. Let's get into it. We've got a lot to talk about. And I want to start off with Dexter Lawrence because that was kind of one of the big storylines of the first day of minicamp. I know that has nothing to do with the minicamp and the rookies, but I'm going to get to that. I promise you that. But what I want to talk about with Dexter Lawrence, he signed his contract, as we know. He had agreed to a 4-year, $90 million contract with up to $60 million guaranteed. And he was signed it today while the team, was out on the field with the rookies. And I'll tell you what, folks, I get this question a lot. Who are some of my favorite players to talk to interview? And I generally don't like to name favorites because in every way, shape, or form, every guy brings something to the table. I can't say that I don't have a lot of favorites, or I have guys that I absolutely hate talking to or don't want to talk to or don't like talking to. But when it comes to Dexter Lawrence, the thing that just absolutely blows me away with him, and this happens every single year, besides the fact that he's such a humble and, nice guy, a big old teddy bear, if you will, is just how grounded and mature this guy is. And I say that because, here's a guy who last year made a bit of a position switch. He played more nose tackle than he did, on the end, which he had done more so under the previous coaching staff. So Wink Martindale comes in, moves him inside to nose tackle. And what happens? Dexter has a humongous year. He leads the team in sacks and quarterback pressures. He sets personal bests in sacks, quarterback pressures, and tackles. And he makes a Pro Bowl. And I asked Dexter about that. I said to him, listen, obviously you did the work. So I don't want to take away from what you did, but, can you talk about what Wink Martindale, and his belief in switching you over to, more of a nose tackle position or that 0 or 1 technique position, what that has done for you? Dexter was very quick to deflect the attention from himself, the credit from himself, and put it towards his teammates. And folks, this is just what the Giants have gotten in Dexter Lawrence, a guy who, look, he's just like I said, he's a big old teddy bear in the locker room, just a really sweet guy to talk to. But he's all about his teammates. It's never been about Dexter Lawrence. He spoke about wanting to be respected, which we all do. I mean, you can't really fault him for that. We all want to be respected, regardless of what we do in our line of work. So Dexter, I asked him about the contract negotiations with the Giants, and he characterized them as, productive and open communication, which, by the way, I've got a thought about that coming up. But just to listen to this guy and hear him talk about how he wants to continue to be part of something special that they're building. And I don't know if you saw the pictures that I posted on Instagram or on Twitter, but Dexter Lawrence has a big old NY tattoo on his bicep. Very telling. He's a Giant for life, it looks like. And, the Giants got him for the next 4 years. And I, for one, couldn't be happier because he's a leader. He's a guy who's matured. He's good for that locker room. And, not to mention the sexy Dexy dance that he did. We actually saw him come out onto the field very briefly to greet Brian Dable while he was out with the rookies. And sexy Dexy did his dance, that sack dance that he likes to do after, dropping a quarterback. And Dable kind of reciprocated, was trying to do the dance too. And, it was better. Lawrence's version was better. No disrespect to Coach Dable, but Lawrence's version was a lot better. And, that just goes to show you the love that they have for the players in that building. Dable loves those guys as though they were sons. And I can't say enough about that because, there are some coaches that are kind of standoffish and, very stoic, and they don't show that emotion towards their players. And when a guy, can show that emotion and can be, a player's coach, it goes a long way. And that's why people want to come in and play for Brian Dable, Dexter Lawrence included. So Dable's got him. Wink Martindale's got him. Onward and upward, big things ahead for Dexter Lawrence and the Giants. Now, I mentioned before that I had a thought about, Dexter's comments on how the negotiations went. And I just want to mention that real quick. One of the things that Joe Schoen has done, regardless of who the free agent is he's kept open lines of communication, especially with his own guys. Sometimes there's this conception that the team's only looking to do what's best for the team and the heck with the player. That has not been the case with this regime. Joe Schoen, from what Dexter said, what I was able to infer from what Dexter said, what I've heard from other guys as well, keeps an open line of communication with those who want to be communicated with. So basically, it's like, okay, this is where we're at. This is what we're trying to do. This is why we're doing what we're doing. There's no mystery. There's no cloak and dagger game going on. There's no attempt to screw these guys. And I think that open communication is huge. I think it's also a very underrated part of this regime. And I don't know about you guys, but if I had an employer who was that open and that communicative with me, I'd be pretty happy. And fortunately, for the record, I do have that, but not everybody has that. Sometimes we get bombshells dropped on us, surprises that are not always pleasant. So look, you're trying to build a culture in that locker room, and Joe Schoen's doing it through open communication, as is Brian Dable. And that is huge, ladies and gentlemen. Can't say enough about it. All right, coming up next, we're going to turn our attention to the rookie minicamp day 1. And I'm going to give you some thoughts and takeaways, so don't go anywhere. Hey, Giant fans, if you're like me and you want to make healthier snack choices, but you don't want to compromise on taste, then you got to try a Built Bar or a Built Puff. These tasty treats are healthy and amazing, with each bar puff covered in 100% real chocolate. It's just like eating a candy bar, but without all the sugar, the carbs, and the guilt. With Built Bars and Built Puffs, you're getting a generous dose of protein in every serving, roughly about 17 grams per serving. And most bars have about 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and they taste great. I especially like the Built Puffs because they have a marshmallowy type of texture. It's like eating a chocolate-covered marshmallow that's good for you and tastes great. And right now, did you know that you don't have to wait for Built to ship your box anymore? You can just pop into your local Sam's Club or Walmart to pick up a box of assorted flavors. Or if you want to go over to Built.com, you can go ahead and use our special promo code LOCK15 Locked On 15 to save 15% off your next order. So don't wait. Get yourself a healthy treat that actually tastes good. Check out Built Bars or Built Puffs today. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Trena. This is our Friday show, day one of New York Giants rookie minicamp in the books. Boy, time flies when you're having fun. I'll tell you, it was great to be outside today watching some spring football, even though it was only a short workout. It was 75 minutes. There wasn't a whole lot in terms of, seven on seven. There was one 7-on-7 session, no 11-on-11, just a lot of teaching, a lot of instruction, a lot of individual drills being done as the coaches were trying to bring these guys up to speed and see who, some of the gems are, the hidden gems in the batch. So if you're looking for, who really looked good and who didn't, how did, for example, Deonte Banks do against Jalen Hyatt? That wasn't in this camp. That wasn't the purpose of this camp. But there are still some takeaways that I'm going to give you. But first, I just want to give you a heads up on a couple of housekeeping notes. Starting next week, folks, I will have the individual draft breakdowns. I spoke to all the hosts of the Locked On College podcasts whose schools cover these guys. Also spoke with Damian Parson, who's part of the Locked On NFL Draft podcast. And I got a lot of great stuff for you. We're going to launch all that starting Monday. And I think we'll probably interrupt the flow just because we've got the schedule coming out, I think, on Thursday. So I'm going to probably need to interrupt that real quick, that flow to cover the schedule. But that's coming next week. And also, folks, I've got an exciting announcement that I have to share with you. The Locked On Network is now available on the SiriusXM app. That's right. We are growing, and now we are going to be available on the SiriusXM app. It's an exciting partnership. And in fact, for those of you who are watching this, I am going to be on SiriusXM. I believe it is, Saturday. 5:00 Saturday, I'm going to be on with Alex Marvez and Vic Carucci, and I'm going to be talking Giants with them. So if you have SiriusXM NFL radio, tune in and see what I have to say, because by then the rookie minicamp will be done. Maybe I'll have a few more thoughts to share. But anyway, let us get back to the rookie minicamp, because that's why you're here, right? You guys came to find out, what did you think? What did you see? What can you tell us? Now, again, as far as football stuff goes, I'm going to keep it very general because it was all about drills. There was only one 7-on-7 session. So I can't sit here and say, this guy looked better than that guy. So let me just start off with a couple of observations that I had on the specific players. We'll start there and we'll kind of work downward. So Deonte Banks, I'm going to start with him. I call him the man of few words. And by the way, I have to tell you guys this. I put it on my Twitter account and on my Instagram account. Deonte Banks, first time I've ever seen a player do this. He was standing at the podium, and every time he was asked a question, he would bend down to answer it, like put his face like right on top of the microphone, which I thought was just precious. The microphones are there for the TV cameras to pick up, and you don't have to bend down, but he didn't know that. And I just thought that was so considerate of him. But anyway, on the field, what did I think of Deonte Banks? Good ball skills as advertised, quick to flip his hips. I was watching some of the drills he was doing with the rest of the defensive backs. I thought he looked very comfortable in this defense, or what they were asking him to do, I should say. And when he made a mistake, it wasn't hard to spot it because he really beat himself up. He would just slap his hands against his head, or, kind of throw his hands down in frustration or whatever. So definitely a guy who cares. And, I mentioned his media session, didn't have a lot to say, a lot of short clipped answers, not because he was being rude, but, getting straight to the point, very businesslike. And that's how he kind of conducted himself out on the field. So I was kind of impressed by that. And I can appreciate, that demeanor, because, look, everybody seems to think that, we in the media, we want, the sound bite. And yeah, the sound bite is nice to have, but I can also appreciate a guy who goes about his business and does his talking on the field. And Deonte Banks comes across as a guy who I think is going to do his talking on the field. John Michael Schmitz, my guy, love him. He was the exclusive center on the 7-on-7 drills. The scouting reports talked about how polished he was, how NFL ready he was. Now, Schmitz did some snapping both with the center underneath him and also from the shotgun. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why I have been screaming for a pure center for God knows how long. Every single snap that John Michael Schmitz had was perfect. And why is that significant? Well, he was working primarily with Tommy DeVito, the undrafted free agent quarterback from Illinois, who is jockeying to be the third quarterback on this roster. The snaps were perfect. I did not see a single botched snap, whether it be shotgun or with the quarterback standing behind him. That is significant because sometimes when you're working with a quarterback for the first time, you kind of have to develop a feel. And it just looked like Schmitz and DeVito had been working together forever. And that to me was very impressive. And that, a big takeaway. Now, we're not going to talk to Schmitz until Saturday. He's scheduled to be in the Saturday group of media avails. But I'm really looking forward to talking to this guy because he's a tremendous guy. And I've heard a lot of good things about him, how smart he is, how conscientious he is. And, folks, I've been beating the drum for John Michael Schmitz for the longest time. He's here. And I think he's really going to be a good one. So I was happy to see that. All right, let's talk Jalen Hyatt, the 3rd round pick. Jalen Hyatt did not participate in the 7-on-7 drills. And I don't think Eric Gray did either for that matter. But anyway, sticking with Hyatt, what I was able to see from him, nice soft hands. And he spoke to the media on Friday and spoke about, he addressed criticisms about not running a full route tree down in Tennessee and whatnot. Jalen Hyatt is a very, very confident player. He is, you could see the speed, on display, the soft hands, like I said. What I would like to see more of that we didn't see enough of in this particular workout is how he's going to react in traffic. He supposedly is very good in traffic, but I'd like to see that. But I just, I would say of all the rookies so far that we've met in the media, Hyatt is just dripping with confidence, not cockiness, but confidence. And I'm really looking forward to seeing him go up against, the Adoree Jacksons and even the Deonte Banks on the team, because I think that's going to be a fun battle to keep an eye on this summer. All right, one last draft pick I want to talk about today is running back Eric Gray. And Nick Filato, if you're out there listening to this podcast, man, I'm ticked at you, my friend. Why am I ticked at Nick Filato? Because he stole my headline. He called, I posted a picture of Eric Gray on my Twitter account and on my Instagram account at Patty Traina. And I said, I made reference to Eric Gray's quads, which are tree trunks, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, Nick Filato, the clever and creative fella he is, came up with some punchlines like say quads or the quad squad, or I was like, or meet the squads. And I'm like, dang it, Nick, you stole my thunder. You stole my headlines. So that's why I'm a little ticked at Nick. No, just seriously, folks, I love Nick. Nick is my guy. I can't say enough good things about him. But anyway, so that's one of the things that jumps out at you about Eric Gray. He's just got such thick quads. And that's where his power is. Now, again, he didn't participate, or I didn't see him participating in the 7-on-7. And you really, you need to see the pads on to really appreciate the running game, I think, fully. But you could just see the power, the acceleration. I'm not so sure he has the quick bursts that maybe an Ahmad Bradshaw had back in the day, but I'm really excited to see Eric Gray carry the ball, pound the rock. And we'll probably see some of that coming up in the mandatory minicamp coming up next month. But Eric Gray, that's somebody I want to see more of. And I will say this, in drills, did a good job, nice soft hands catching passes. So that's one of his strengths, being able to be deployed as a receiver out of the backfield. And, it's interesting because with these young running backs, a lot of times there's a section of their game that really isn't as mature as you'd like it to be, to where they're game ready. Now, I haven't seen how well he blocks in person, but early on, it looks like the Giants got a complete package in Eric Gray. And look, Saquon Barkley is eventually going to sign, whether it be a multi-year deal or the franchise tag. But I'll tell you what, if anything ever happens to him this year, Eric Gray might not be such a bad replacement for him. So something to keep an eye on. All right, one other guy I want to talk about. This isn't a draft pick, but this is this year's media darling, or the apple of everybody's eye. I mean, every year it just seems like there's an undrafted free agent that seems to be, the talk of the town, so to speak. And this year, one of those guys is Illinois quarterback Tommy DeVito, who's also a New Jersey native, comes from Cedar Grove, I believe it is. Tommy DeVito, it's interesting. He's listed as 6'2" on the roster sheet, but I was watching the quarterbacks and they were standing around in between drills. And I thought to myself that DeVito looked like he was the shortest of the three that they had in camp. They had another guy who was 6'2", and then they had a guy who was 6'3", and I'll give you their names real quick. I posted this, by the way, on my Twitter account, the rookie minicamp roster. It's also on my Instagram account if you want to see who was in. But the quarterbacks that were in this camp were, besides DeVito, we had, let me see, Bryce Perkins, 6'3" out of Virginia. And who was the other one? Hunter Johnson, 6'2" out of Clemson. So, size notwithstanding. And again, I posted a picture of DeVito on my Twitter account, but here's what I thought about him. He was clearly quarterback one when it came to the drills. Most of the passes he threw were out to the flats. I didn't see a whole lot over the middle or anything like that, but got a nice tight spiral on the ball. Seemed to make the right decisions from what I could see. I didn't see any coach come after him to, talk him up or scold him or anything like that. DeVito comes with a reputation as being a capable game manager. And, again, in this particular camp, based on one practice, not enough of a sample size to really talk about what we saw or what a guy might potentially bring. You could look at the basics, the fundamentals and stuff like that. But there was nothing really out there that just made me say, the Giants have a lemon here. So DeVito is going to be somebody that, I'm interested to see more of down the line. But, as far as what he brings to the table and, if he could potentially become the number 2 quarterback to supplant Tyrod Taylor, who's entering the final year of his contract, that remains to be seen. All right, coming up next, I've talked about some sites from the rookie minicamp. Next, I'm going to talk about some sounds, some quotes, and some other superlatives that maybe you didn't see on camera from the Giants, but which I saw. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm Patricia Trainer, your host, coming to you a little late on a Friday, but hopefully the show was worth the wait. I'm trying to give you the best that I have from my notebook and my observations. And, busy day at the Giants, rookie minicamp kicking off. Not a whole lot in terms of, offense versus defense. It was more of a teaching camp, as I've said. But, still, it was great to be out there. It was great to get to meet the rookies. And, I can give you a few more takeaways from things I saw, from things, I heard in the pressers, just conversations I had and whatnot. So I've just got really a few more, and then we'll just send you into the weekend on an upbeat note. But, I want to talk about Trey Hawkins, who, interesting fella. Very confident. I look at all these draft picks so far, the ones that have come to the podium, and they're all dripping with confidence. I don't detect any shyness or hesitation or anything from these guys, which is good because, you don't want to be a shrinking violet in this media market. But Trey Hawkins, one of the things I like about him, besides that confidence, I asked him about, what cornerbacks, either currently active or retired, does he like? Who does he try to model his game after? And he talked about Patrick Surtain, Jimmy Smith, Jalen Ramsey, a couple of others he might have mentioned. And I said to him, okay, great. What do you like about those guys? And what do you, how does your game mirror those guys? And he said, quote, they all come down inside with their own thing. None of them are scared neither. End quote. Hawkins, ladies and gentlemen, is not scared out there. A lot of people think, okay, these rookies, they come in, now the bright lights are on them and they're going to be, they're going to be timid, or they're going to, be finding their way, feeling their way around. I did not get that impression from any of the rookies that spoke today. And again, it was Hawkins, Hyatt, Banks, and DeVito all, came out for the podium. So it was a small sample size, but you just like to hear the confidence. And I'm kind of more intrigued now to see what Hawkins brings to the table. At first, I thought, all right, maybe he's a developmental prospect. Not a guy who I believe has played a lot of special teams, but now I'm very curious to see what he brings to the table. If he could maybe be, a utility type of guy who could play a variety of different roles. So that's something I definitely want to check out. Brian Dable, I thought, was pretty good today with some of his responses to the media session. I mentioned the quote that I played for you in the first segment, but he also talked about, the process and just teaching and whatnot. So he was asked a question about John Michael Schmitz and where do you start with a young offensive lineman? How do you start breaking them in? Because remember, the pads don't go on until the summertime. There's no contact, and really you can't appreciate what an offensive lineman brings to the table until you put them in pads. And Dable just spoke, about the mental aspect of it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, kind of lies into or blends into Schmitz's, one of his many strengths. The guy is super smart. Everyone I've spoken to about John Michael Schmitz say the same thing. He is smart. His football IQ is off the charts. So, I mentioned in the previous segment how smooth he looked with his snaps. Now, he hasn't obviously had an opportunity to identify defenses or make protection calls or anything. Not just yet, but that's coming. And I'm curious to see if the problem the Giants had last year with pressure coming up the gut, if that problem goes away now that Schmitz is projected to run the show there. So that should be interesting to check out as well. Okay, one more thing I want to talk about that Dable kind of mentioned, and that is, with rookie minicamp, it's not just an opportunity to see your draft class and your undrafted free agents in your team's uniform for the first time. It's also an opportunity to see if maybe you can find somebody, a diamond in the rough then maybe you missed initially that lands on your 53-man roster. So Dable mentioned how Ryder Anderson, who initially came in as a tryout player and was signed to the 90-man roster and who made the team, that's a guy who, rose up out of nowhere. Same thing with Tamon Fox, defensive lineman and outside linebacker. Tamon Fox was an undrafted free agent who stunned the world and made the roster. So I really like how Dable, keeps an open mind when it comes to these rookies. Again, there have been times when I've covered this team and the coach, it's like, okay, yeah, we have to have rookies, but there was more of a reliance on the veterans to get the job done than there was, rookies and undrafted free agents and all that stuff. Not with this staff, folks. This staff keeps an open mind towards everyone, whether you're undrafted, whether you're a tryout player, you're a first-round pick, a seventh-round pick. And that's something I really like about Dable. And it sends a good message down to the locker room because they don't care how much money you're making or where you were drafted or where your origins are from. They only care about, are you a fit for the locker room and what can you bring to the big picture? And isn't that how it should be? Too many people get hung up on silly things about, this guy wasn't drafted or, this guy, got traded or whatever, whatever excuse you want to find. But at the end of the day, having an open mind, having that open communication, isn't that what you want from the team? Because look, it worked last year for the team. And I have no idea, by the way, what the Giants are going to be like this coming season. I don't know how good they're going to be. I don't know if they're going to regress, but I have a lot of confidence in what the future holds because I just like how this coaching staff is going about its business in building this roster. And gosh, folks, I don't know about you, but it's high time this team emerged from the dark days of the last decade, prior, of course, to last year. So brighter skies ahead for the New York Giants. Rookie minicamp concludes on Saturday. What I will probably do, I'll see what comes out of it. I don't know if I'll have enough for a show for Sunday, but if I do, I'll do a quick show Sunday. If not, maybe I'll do a shorter show, like a 10-minute show or something like that. But either way, folks, starting on Monday, we're going to start the draft reviews. And I think I'm going to kick that one off with Damian Parsons. So plenty to look forward to here on the Locked On Giants podcast. Again, thank you for making us your first listen of the day, or if watching on YouTube, your first watch of the day. Thank you if you're an everydayer. Appreciate you. Plenty of stuff coming up, Giant fans. Can't wait to bring it all to you. So until we meet again, have a great one.